Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Troy Clayton, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is leading aircraftsman James Anning. We warmly welcome the family of Private James Charles O'Donnell, whose story will be told shortly. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We also acknowledge the members of the RSL Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland, who are watching the ceremony broadcast across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. Thank you. If you're able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozieres, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Private James Charles O'Donnell. James O'Donnell was born on the 25th of February, 1894, in Old Junee, New South Wales, one of 5 children born to Michael and Jessie O'Donnell. Known as Charlie, he received his education at Junee Public School and later gained employment as a blacksmith, working for the local coach builder, J.S. Taylor. When war broke out in 1914, Charlie O'Donnell did not delay his enlistment, volunteering to serve in the Australian Imperial Force on the 27th of November, 1914. Assigned to the reinforcements of the 1st Battalion, in February the following year, he embarked for active service from Sydney on board the troopship Chongchun. Private O'Donnell joined his unit on the Gallipoli Peninsula in June 1915. 2 months later, he took part in his first and only major battle of the war at Lone Pine. The attack was planned as part of a diversion to cover Allied units attacking positions at Chinook Bear and Hill 971. In the early hours of the morning of the 6th of August 1915, the 1st Battalion, Private Charlie O'Donnell among its numbers, charged Turkish defensive positions at Lone Pine. On reaching Turkish lines, advancing troops met trenches that had been covered by pine logs, offering protection to the enemy and severely hindering the Australian advance. Troops were forced to break through the log roof, often engaging the enemy in hand-to-hand combat. Private William Stenning, who was also in the attack, later described the battle. The scene in the trenches by this time was an awful one. We were here, hit there, and everywhere, dodging bombs, and in some cases catching them as they came in, and throwing them back before they had time to explode. The dead in the trenches was beginning to pile up. Each time we repulsed the Turks, but with what loss? There were poor chaps who had their heads blown off, split in two, and sides blown out, and otherwise horribly mutilated. The scene was one I shall never forget to the end of my days. Though the main objective was taken within 20 minutes, 4 days of intense fighting followed, costing more than 2,000 Australian casualties. At some point during the attack, Private Charlie O'Donnell went missing. News reached his parents in Australia in a telegram which read, officially reported that 1770 Private J.C. O'Donnell killed in action between 6th and 9th of August. Noticing that the service number listed was not the same that Charlie embarked with, his parents began to hope that this information was incorrect. His father wrote to base records. I received a wire saying my son had been killed in action. When he left Australia, his number was 1606, and he wrote to me from Gallipoli on the 29th of July, and his number was still 1606. I have made multiple inquiries. You will understand my wife and myself are uncertain, owing to the discrepancy in numbers and to our son's fate. We would esteem it a very special favour if you would have inquiries made and try and get the matter cleared. In October 1915, base records confirmed that despite the discrepancy in service numbers, there was no mistake. Charlie O'Donnell had been killed in action at Lone Pine. His remains were later recovered from the battlefield and buried at Lone Pine Cemetery, where they lie today beneath the inscription, "May his soul rest in peace." James Charles O'Donnell was 21 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. A photograph of his headstone is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private James Charles O'Donnell, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We'll remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director and staff, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support of the Memorials Development Project. And we wish you all a very pleasant evening.